with the microphone. I hope you can all hear me. Our supervisor is excused this evening with the sad news of the passing of his brother. And so he will not be here to chair this meeting. So with that being said, I would like to make a motion that we invite Treasurer Dave Nadeau to be the chair of this meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Carl Fletcher. Do I have a vote? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I hear none, so the motion passes. We hand the meeting over to Treasurer Nadeau. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. First order of business will be public comment. Any topic?
Pledge of Allegiance was nice.
Would you like to come to the podium?
No, I think you can hear me from there. The microphones aren't
But
on
they
anyway.
can't
It's
see
not
on
being
the camera.
televised neither.
Okay, let's go ahead. No public comment.
Brian?
Yeah, no, I do have two.
Sorry about that.
Give me 1 second. All right, Jenna Moxlow, 9415 Lakewood Drive. As is the case with many citizens, the unfortunate reality is that life and schedules often get in the way of attending board meetings in person, which is why I'm writing you this email today instead of standing before you. I am grateful for the opportunity to catch regular board meetings live on GITV, Facebook, or YouTube Live when my schedule allows. However, this is rarely the case. Most often the following day during my lunch, I will catch up on the replay on YouTube or Facebook. It's a wonderful way for me to stay plugged into the community, events, news, and goings on without needing to attend in person. Most other community members that I have talked to watch board meetings the same way, after the fact via recordings. To that end, I'm disappointed that I won't have that same opportunity for this special meeting, just as I haven't for any other study session in the past. What you did to accommodate the bridge engineer meeting was wonderful, however, and many citizens took advantage of watching it online, myself included. Surely there is a way to facilitate some type of recording for this event, even if it's not on GITV. I hope you'll take it into consideration. Any cell phone can go live on Facebook with an app, or can record a full meeting to be uploaded on YouTube. The Township Board is unable to facilitate this directly. I suggest allowing citizens to connect with the communications team to make this happen. I'd be happy to facilitate community volunteers to help make this happen if needed. I think it's a crucial step in getting the community more involved. If anyone would like to contact me to discuss this further, this email can be forwarded to any board member who is interested. I will forward it on to all of you. And second, I have Greg Karmazin, taxpayer and homeowner at 21228 East River Road. I have a comment about the agenda item, Police Department financing. First and foremost, I believe it is essential for the Township Board to properly finance the Grosse Ile Township Police Department to ensure it has a staff of 24 members, including 12 road patrol officers necessary to operate 3 patrol vehicles on all shifts. It is my understanding that years ago, the Township Police Commission and GIPD management established an operational standard that 3 patrol vehicles on all shifts were necessary to guarantee an emergency call response time of between 3 to 5 minutes for the most likely scenarios to which the department generally responds. In this regard, I have questions that I hope are addressed during the Township Board study session tonight. In 2018, the Township Police Commission, in conjunction with the Township Finance Director, established a 5-year plan for fiscal year 2018-19 through 2022-23 that detailed the operations and funding of the GIPD to support the staffing necessary to keep 3 patrol vehicles on the road during all shifts. It is my understanding that the 5-year plan showed that by the end of fiscal year 2022-2023, the GIPD would need more funding than was projected from the millages in effect through fiscal year 22-23. As the Township Board asked the Police Commission and Township Finance Director to update the GIPD's 5-year plan. If so, when did the Township Board take this action? And has the GIPD's 5-year plan been updated? If the GIPD's 5-year plan has been updated, what is the amount of funding projected as being necessary to keep the GIPD staff level at 24 members, including 3 road patrol officers in all shifts? Is GIPD's 5-year plan has been updated? Is it available for the public to review as it has been in the past? Thank you for your opportunity to make public comments tonight. I'm done. That's enough. All 2.
Okay. Thank you, Brian.
Mr.
Anytime.
Treasurer, I have a question. I noticed on this agenda, we do not have a motion to accept the agenda. Do we need to add that?
You don't have to. I
Okay,
mean, you guys have done it, but it's not necessarily something that has to be done.
okay. Well, since we are all here, but we are missing one member, we cannot actually change the agenda. So I guess I would like to make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is accepted as presented. And I guess the first action item would go to Uche as the liaison to the fire.
Well, it is unfortunately my duty as liaison to the Fire Commission to make this motion. The Grosse Ile Township Board hereby accepts the retirement of Fire Chief Russ Bodrie from the position of Fire Chief with the Township of Grosse Ile as prescribed by the Township Manager in the Fire Chief's Retirement Agreement dated November 22nd, 2022.
Support.
Well, just a brief discussion. As you know, Chief Bodrie tendered his retirement. It will be effective today pending our vote, and with the exception of the board. And then our next motion will be in regard to going out to fill that position. That being said, I would like to send out my heartfelt congratulations in a way to Chief Bodrie on his retirement. He has had a long and fruitful career with the Grosse Ile Fire Department as a volunteer firefighter, as fire marshal, and for the past 2+ years as chief. And I have really enjoyed working with him, and I wish him well in his retirement.
Thank you, Uche. Okay, we have a motion and a support. And the motion is that the Grosse Ile Township Board hereby accepts the retirement of Chief Russell Bodrie from the position of Fire Chief with the Township of Grosse Ile as prescribed by the Township Manager in the Fire Chief's Retirement Agreement dated November 22, 2022. All in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations, Chief Bodrie. Okay. The second action item, and this would to advertise, permission, authorization to authorize Mr. Teal to begin the advertising position for the fire chief.
Would you like me to make that motion?
You certainly can.
Well, with this motion, I request that the Grosse Ile Township Board hereby authorizes the advertisement of the position of fire chief based upon the attached draft advertisement attached to this action item.
Second.
So this action is necessary due to the recent retirement of Fire Chief Bodrie. We are looking for applications from both internal and external candidates, and these applications will be accepted through January 11, 2023. The position will be advertised with the Michigan Municipal League, the Michigan Townships Association, the Michigan Association of Fire Chiefs, the Michigan Association of Firefighters, and of course on the township website and Facebook and other township media that are available to us.
Okay, we have a motion before the board that the Township Board hereby authorizes the advertisement of the position of fire chief based upon the attached draft advertisement attached to this action item. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We can begin our advertisement process. And that being the action items on today's agenda, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the agenda, or adjourn the meeting. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. And now we will begin our study session on the police department financing. Guess I'll call on Ann to come up and
The projector and stuff. Yeah, is it?
Do we
Right.
have,
No, I'm still waiting for it to come back. I had to ship it off.
Okay.
oh, so we don't have,
If she plugs a laptop, she can put everything up if she wants.
It's not, we'll just go with it.
do we have extra copies of this, or?
Does anybody need a copy? I can run down and run
Thanks,
them out for you if you'd like.
Looks like everybody has a copy, so. Will this be available online at some point?
It will, it will. Joe, I might jump around a little bit, would that be okay? Like not go pages 1 through whatever, I might jump around.
Yeah,
Is that okay with everything?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, we have been obviously talking about this for a long time. This has been ongoing. We'll go into some of the detail. For the last couple of years, if we look at our financial condition, we have been running neck to neck. So really, the last couple of years, we've had gains of like $12,000. So to me, that's about as close as it gets as we actually, the last couple of years, if you look at our history, and I think that's a lot of telling of where we were and where we're going. So, if you look at pages 11 and 12, I'm just starting here because we're trying to give history of where we are. If we look at pages 11 and 12, so we're talking about the last couple of years, 1920, 2021, and 21-22, so the last 3 years of actual audited financial numbers. We gotta remember that general fund is not only police department, and I think we get caught up a little bit because they take 90% of it. It does contain the general fund, all the administration in the township as well. So a lot of times, there's always that fight. For the longest time when I sit here, it's always the fight, what do we give to the police department, how do we operate with general fund? So just so you know, the tension has always been there, and we've always tried to accommodate the police department as best that we could. We have eliminated a lot of positions at Township Hall. I mean, this is an ongoing give and take, is I guess the other way to put it.
I have a question, Ann.
Sure.
And again, correct me if I'm wrong, and I hear this from sometimes residents in the community as well. There's an impression that we were using state shared revenue to kind of balance running the township administration departments so that it would take some of the burden off the general fund to release more for the police department. Is that still the case?
Generally, we basically, in my history, we always say, police department, what do you need first? That came first, and the chief would create his budget, and then we'd have the rest of the budget, and then we'd come to see where we were at. And everyone had to give and take a little bit to make it balance. Obviously, we don't ever wanna, so that's kind of in the last couple of years. Our tax revenue is rising, but not at the pace as it was, in 2008 when that took its downfall. It is coming up very slowly, but we can, just like anything else, our expenditures are rising faster than our taxable value. We can see that in history when I go to the sheets. So in the last couple of years, like I said, we've been very close. So the last couple of years, in 2021, we made $12,000, and then last year, and then the year after that would be like $67,000, and last year we went in the hole by $99,000. So last year was our first year of a deficit that we recorded in the amount of almost $100,000, and that really was contributed to the additional position in the police department. a lot of that was. So that was going into our 21-22. So we knew we were coming up short. This is where the real struggle started to come in. When we did our 22-23 budget, we were off balance. We ended up having to sell township property in the amount of $240,000 to make up that difference to create our balanced budget. So just so everyone is aware, we were struggling this year, and we actually had to sell some township property to make that balance exist. So we're going into 2022, 2023 as a $240,000 difference between what our taxes were and what our use of our operations were. Along in 22, 23, we had to, the contract for the police was up. So that was a 4-year contract that had expired in 2022-23. So as part of the budgeting into the future, the police were going into negotiations again for the biggest part of the general fund budget. There were some things that wanted to be accomplished with the police department negotiations. One of them were, as we always talk about, our unfunded liabilities. So the township's priorities were to maybe give some things up for the long term of the financial security of the township. So they were willing to give some stuff up front so that we could start to reduce our long-term unfunded liability looking into the future. So with negotiations, as we know, there's a give and take, right? So once the contract was settled, there were some issues, not issues, but there were some financial conditions in the contract that, like I said, there were some things that we can talk about that increased the cost to the police department. So what that does is actually taking our number that we're already down because we were so close in the last couple of years and just making that number larger than it was, the difference between our revenues and expenses that much more because of and we can, like I said, we can go about that, but I just wanted to tell you where the history was and where we're going and why we got to where we're going. It's just our taxable values are not keeping up with the cost of operations. And we remember that a lot of these budgets, 75% of them is personnel. That's what it is, those are where the costs are, we all know it is out there. And the rest of the numbers within the budgets are pretty consistent, based on history. So that's kind of and those are pages 11 and 12, all the detail there, but I kind of get a synopsis of those situations. So I'm gonna kind of go over the graphs and some of the, again, history. I'm a big fan that history basically tells us where we're going in the future. Especially, I'm gonna start, so we're gonna just look at the first graph.
Can I ask why we're not doing any kind of PowerPoint or anything?
The thing wasn't working.
Okay.
It hasn't been working all week, he was waiting for a part.
Okay.
So, I mean, obviously this will be available to everybody, but it just, page 4. Page 4.
I just got an official screen there. I don't have it.
So it's a pie chart. So, just so we understand, how the villages are created, and we can go into detail of that too, is how the villages are created. So if we look at the total villages of the township, general fund right now has 5 different villages, totaling, which contain our allocated mill, a 2 general fund voted mill, and 3 different various police millages that were dedicated to the police department. So our total mills right now in the general fund is 5.7879 based on how they roll back. So this is just kind of percentage that 37% of our tax bill goes to the police, general fund / police department. So they do get the majority of our taxes across the board. Second one is our debt to the treatment plant. We all know that that existed. That's 28%, but obviously 30% 37%. I think that's important to realize, but that is our discretionary fund, that is our police department, that does contain the most personnel. So it makes sense that it costs most to operate those two entities. Does that sound, everyone following me? So again, if you look at pages 5 and 6, so pages 5,
And to,
yeah,
we move on off of this pie chart,
Yeah.
on page 4. All the other sections of the pie, recreation, fire,
yep,
those are all funded with dedicated
they're
millage.
all voted.
So those are all voted millages that can only remain in those departments.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
general fund, administration, and police,
Right,
we're left with 37% of the total,
right,
and it's all being spent.
on the price at this point, we're gonna show you that.
That's about 32, or 3.237 million, is that about right, 3 million? Yeah. So that's the number there, 3.237.
Page 5, this will become important. If you look at the history since, I could have went back further, but I guess I went back from 2012. These are total township millages. So you can see how they range. So they have been up, they have been down, things have fallen off, things haven't gotten renewed. We had a big drop between 18 and 19, 19, 20, 20, 21. We're under that 15 level, which was obviously very good at that time. And then, in 22, I think 22, correct me if I'm wrong, is when we went out to an additional mill for the police department, was that last mill.
22.
No, was it? No,
No.
that wasn't it, no, that wasn't, when was the last time?
You're talking about the additional mill?
Yeah, that must have been.
Oh, no, that was 16, or, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I was trying to think that was.
Yeah, no, that was back.
Excuse me. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that
that
was
was,
back.
Well-
so,
I believe it was 12,
That was before.
it was 12?
2012, I believe.
The first one?
Okay, 2012
Yeah.
was when it, okay.
Yeah,
when we went
'cause I
out to
just
the-
got in.
Yep, okay, so that's 20 or 13, that's when it went up, so the year 13, that's
Yeah.
that big jump, okay, then I did, yep. So then, it starts going, and then, 22, is where we are now. That was the one that was just levied, and you can see 23, is when it's going to go up to almost 16 mils due to, and we'll talk about it, so the 22 jumped from, because those were the ones that were just passed this year. So the 21, and then we had the additional, road millage. And we also had the additional, that was in set with the additional road millage, and is what created that jump.
22 would be the roads that was
Yeah.
just passed, 23 would be the fire that was
Department.
passed, and
Yeah.
24 would be the wastewater treatment plant that was passed. So those are built into those numbers.
Right.
So, it would be helpful if we had the actual PDF or color copies or something, because, scanning it as black and white, I can't see any differentiation between,
We could print them,
Any
that's
of
what
the
he asked you to go
charters.
down and make copies if you wanted. Because
There-
I told you I was gonna be jumping.
There isn't any differentiation, it's all just one solid
It's all
color.
one.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well, on the property taxes, police taxes, one on page 7, it's just 2 black columns next to the changes.
Okay.
One of
It
the-
would be helpful if you printed the PDF instead of scanning and having the black and white, I guess, is all I'm saying.
So on page 7, we're basically measuring property taxes collected versus the police department. So between 2013,
Oh, here.
you can now see where the switch is happening. So between 2013 and 2022, we were kind of operating, the police department was operating within the general fund as far as the property tax collection. So this year, we budgeted, and as we started to change things based on the contract, it now is switched. So you can see that they were running close based on total property taxes, so they were giving some back. They were giving some back to operate, to help operate with the general fund operations. But in '23, based on all the contract negotiations and the additional positions, it has now overturned. And that's what we're facing today, that now there is nothing available to operate our township. And our township costs are going up as well. So, that's why this chart becomes important to realize what has happened and why we're switching now, and what differences made that switch.
What are you estimating property tax increases going up by?
I am estimating a 3% increase in property taxes. Since you brought up that motion, brought up that question, let's go to page 10.
So you feel though inflation is gonna be coming down then for '23? I mean, just in your numbers, I'm not trying to.
I'm saying, obviously, I don't know, and I would have never predicted in 2008 we would have bottomed out so quick. But I'm projecting that taxable value for the next 5 years will be
Approximately.
at 3%. And that's what that was the history for the last 5%. That's the only thing I can go by. And it's not necessarily just, it's inflation, it's new home build, it's new construction, it's new homes. There's been a lot of that, so it has been keeping at my 3%. I'm comfortable with that. Like I said, I would have never realized that would have happened in the past. Could it happen again? Absolutely it could. We just don't know, right? So, in general, just so everyone knows, wages are predicated with our new wage scale. We can go over some of the things that now are in my projections and what increased the cost. So let's go to page 1 in my summary of when I'm talking about my projections. I'm talking about page 11 and 12, how we project increases. Basically how I project increases is based on history, is based on, if you look at our budget to actual, we're pretty darn close, right? So we know historically I'm using taxable value increases at 3%. Doing state shared revenue at 3%. It has been that, has been more, has been less. That's based on the state. Our pension cost have been increasing at a rate of 7%. That is not only the current cost, but to get a hold of that unfunded liability portion. So we're paying additional 7%. Healthcare increases is 3% based on the hard cap that the state gives us. And some of the increases, as we talked about earlier, were based on the POAM contract, which is their contract that is now for the next 4 years. Pay increases were 3% for 4 years across the board. 12-hour shifts created an additional 5% for patrolmen because they are getting paid an additional 8 hours per month.
Is that overtime?
No, it's just
Just
Extra hours
It's
on
8
those.
straight,
But it's extra hours actually worked.
Right.
Okay. 8 more than your 40. 8.
Also, within this projection is the 24th employee, so as an additional employee, and one will be continued to be paid out of forfeiture funds like it has been in the past. So these projections do incorporate that additional,
12 patrolmen.
And I think we need to point out here too, Ann, that the provisions of the most recent POAM contract, it was, 2 or 3 months after the budget was put together,
yes,
that
absolutely,
those terms became,
yes.
were solidified in the contract.
Yeah, I
That's
think,
why the timing of this is
Right.
weird, like that happened, the budget happened, then all these happened,
I think there were some assumptions made in the budgetary process, lack of knowing how much a wage increase would be. I think 0% was budgeted, so some of these numbers were gonna be off based upon the fact that you were working with incomplete information when you were budgeting. Does this also include any contribution to cost of forfeiture?
It does not,
It
it's a
does not.
straight cost.
Okay, so this is straight cost, so keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.
Is there an approximate, number that the contract cost us for this year? I'm sorry, the next budget year? Is it just just a ballpark?
Yeah, I had the schedule. So we said this year would be so this year was 170, and then next year was another 200 on top of that.
But was that straight
That
contract
was-
cost, or was that budget
Well,
deficit?
It's more of a budget deficit, because with the new guy. So I mean, was the guy part of the contract cost or not? So that's.
So you were gonna add the guy and the contract, we're
Was-
looking at 200K
About, yeah,
next year.
yeah. Yes,
Okay.
so everything is on top of, right? So
I get you. I just need an approximate.
Yeah,
just to-
yeah. So that was, I think we got through the graphs, right? Number 8 is basically our village review chart, just so everyone knows when I'm doing those charts, I'm basing it off on actual, where we are today. So our total mills that was just put on the tax bill is 15.5378 mills.
May I ask why that's different than the projection of 15.54 for page 6?
It's a rounding number?
Oh, sorry, yes, sorry, that makes sense.
I'm rounding up.
Yep.
I think I learned that in math, right? Yeah, so you can see in how the two, and how they all renew. If you can look at 22, so when we were doing the road millage and I don't know, Derek, you have the chart.
I do.
Okay. So a lot of the time when we were doing, when to put millages on, we were basing it on providing the least impact to the residents that we could. So that's why we just passed a fire mill that wasn't gonna be put on until 23. If we looked at our history of your millage, we put the roads on now, and we put the SSE, or the wastewater treatment plant, we prolonged it. So we tried to delay them and schedule them so they would have a least effect on the future of the township. And you can see that's why that chart says in 2023, it will be at its highest, at 15.99. So that's a year of concern, because we're now hitting close, we were at 14, now we're hitting almost a 16 level.
Does that include, that doesn't include any potential increases
not.
that could potentially be discussed tonight,
Does not.
right? Okay,
Does not.
that's straight up, it's
That's
gonna
straight
be
up.
15.99 next year.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So everything was based on what was passed to date, nothing to do with where we are today with this stuff. I think, does anyone have any questions? I know it's a lot of numbers and I'm trying to, give you, so let's go then, let's talk at page 10, just so everyone knows. This is kinda how we came up with total cost. The total pay, so everything's on the schedule, what are the basic foundations of the personnel costs. Like I said, all the other costs are very from year to year, they remain pretty stable. So we're trying to just estimate how many mills out and where we need to be, or what funds the police department. So I was asked a question, how much is it to run the police department? So on page 9, and I don't want this to be, but this is a little bit more detailed, and I'm gonna try to go into page 9 and kind of understand what we're trying to do, or what we're trying to get at. Everyone got page 9?
Yeah.
So, on page 9, we looked and we're gonna talk about educating what our mills are and where they're all going. So, we have a general 1.85 mills that, because of the Headley override, has now gotten down to 1.2352. That by law is the only millage this township can assess without the vote of the people. So everything else that we do is based on vote of the people, whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not. That's the only thing that we could live on. So we do have then we have the voted general fund, 2 mills, which expires, so we just renewed that, so that was renewed. And then like we were telling you, we have 3 different police mills, one of .10, one of .75, one of 1.0. All have been voted and dedicated to the police department. As we know, it's not even close to covering the cost of the police department, but that's how it is voted, it's been voted on.
Just, sorry, basic questions again. So 2 mills voted, how does it get down to 1.88 mills? Is that because of that cost?
Had a reduction, it's gonna keep on going down.
Yeah.
That's gonna go down, and it's continuing to go down. Once you have a new mill, you go up to the top, but even a renewal, it starts at where it left off and it will continue to decline. There are some years we don't have any reduction, but with inflation, you're getting that other reduction, and that's what's coming out. So if you look at our total mills, we raise a little over $3.2 million, based on my projections on that big schedule behind. The police department is costing, of that 3.2, the police is costing $4.3 million, and you can see it goes up. And why? Because your costs going up, your salaries are going up, your pension's going up. That raises those costs in the next several years.
So it looks like retirement increases by a factor of 3 over the next 6 years, almost a factor of 3, and is absolutely the most expensive.
Absolutely. And if it's raising at a cost that's higher than.
So eventually, all of our, like, if that trend were to continue, our entire police budget would just be paying retirement.
And that is why when the board discussed contract priorities, getting concessions as it related to pensions was a high priority, because of that understanding that those costs are immense. So you guys directed us to pursue those that made the most amount of sense, which was reduction of COLA, a reduction in FAC calculation, and there has already been adjustments with regards to retirement pools as far as personnel and what multipliers fall in and what FAC falls in to their overall compensation amount and whatnot. So I think there's an understanding within the township that those costs are, to your point, trustee, a significant amount of the budget and the priority to try to reduce.
Right, so there were some things that took into effect. Now, it was $50,000 estimated projection of savings in next year, but I don't know what those are because they're all based on actual real values that go down the road. But
And that was only
that's a
for,
starting point.
that was only for COLA. They weren't able to give us actuarial projections as it related to FAC calculations because
Yeah, I was just gonna ask,
Until
it's one,
it's still actualized.
because it's not balancing out then the amount that we upfronted, right, as opposed to what we're getting in return.
They would not calculate those savings just because they don't know exactly what they're gonna do until they're actualized, because it depends upon how much.
But it has to be done.
It has to be.
Right.
Right, yeah, because
It's not
you
less.
don't
That's
know,
my point.
Exactly.
you don't know if Officer X is gonna be coming in with X number of hours calculated in.
Right,
He may not come in with anything, but we all know that he will,
right.
but
Right.
so.
Well, that and all the assumptions are,
Right,
they're based on the assumption that everybody is gonna remain employed and retire at their retirement age.
Right.
A guy quits next week, next year, well, he drops out, if he's a higher paid, a sergeant that leaves, replaced with a patrolman. So,
My understanding.
you'd have to have
I think they said,
1,000 variables.
I think they said
Who
they were
quits at which
projecting,
stage?
I think they said they were projecting 3 or 4% when they left because their banks were so high. So now they can reduce that by whatever percentage it was. But
Well,
I do remember it wasn't like 3.5%, 4% they were putting on top of our pension.
Right, but my point is the
Yeah.
numbers are only, and I don't mean, when I say in favor, please,
Right.
just understand, I'm just talking numbers.
Right.
But it is in favor of what we were trying to accomplish.
Correct.
Correct.
That's all is my point.
And I think when it came down to negotiating with the union, are you willing to give a 3% wage increase if you're getting this concession on COLA and FEC calculation? And as Anna had mentioned earlier in the presentation, it's a give and a take. You know, trying to accomplish certain things, meanwhile, it might be you have to give a little bit here and there, so.
So what I did is, basically, I took your projections based on the last couple pages, your projected deficit in general fund. I broke it out between what deficit the police department would be if we separated the two and what the general fund would be. So you can see, we're both sharing in that deficit. Again, here we go, sharing the money we have available, sharing the losses, sharing the gains, right? So what I did is try to put what kind of mills would we need to satisfy this deficit. So that was the mills needed on the bottom. So when you're saying what, and if we looked at the, I'm just rounding up, so say in the real world, right now, we're estimating that the police department, is about a 6 1/4 is what it takes for them to operate, about 6.25 mils in total by themselves. And